Okay, good morning, and let's go ahead and get started. And welcome to 2019 Roundtable Legislative Days. It's provided to you and brought to you by the City of Trinidad and the Los Angeles County. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that everyone had a good holiday, and we hope to have a good 2019. I want to thank the KSJC for the venue this morning. And we've got a good crowd of people again. This is the third round that we've had, and it's been interesting because a lot of people are attending. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing. I'm going to introduce some the VIPs this morning, but the one VIP I want to introduce first of all is we have a new Trinidad State Junior College interim president, Dr. Kerry Hart. Would you please stand up and give a round of welcome, please? Thank you. Thank you for being here. Today is the first day on the job. I called Linda Perry this morning and asked him, can he be here? He said, well, we'll give it a shot. He's got a pretty busy schedule, but I'm glad that you were able to make it. Thank you for coming. In the room today is Senator Larry Crowder. Representative Kimmy Lewis. From Senator Bennett's office, Dwight Gardner. From Senator Gardner's office, Ms. Kathy Garcia. From Congressman Buck's office, Ms. Erica Chavez. And we have County Administrator Phil Dorenkamp. City Manager Greg Sund. We have in the audience with us Ms. Dana Crawford. And our lobbyist, Ms. Debbie Wagner. And Mr. Wade Shelton from TPL. And of course from our City Council, we have Mayor Pro Tem Michelle Miles. Councilman Anthony Matei. Councilman Joe Bernardo. Councilwoman Karen Grego. And Councilman Rusty Goodall. And from the County Commissioners, we have Luis Lopez. And we have Miss Amato, County Assessor. We have Commissioner-elect Tony Haas. And Commissioner-elect Felix Lopez. Did I miss anyone?
Carlos.
I think I mentioned you. I said Carlos Lopez, Councilman Carlos Lopez. Sheriff Sheriff Navarrete. You over Thank everyone for being here, the audience, and hopefully that this will be very informative for everyone.
Mayor?
Yes.
County Coroner Junie Berker is also here.
Yes, County Coroner Junie Berker. I'm going to explain the procedure. Today we have Victor, who is going to be our timekeeper, and he's going to have a couple of flags for those speakers. We're going to have about 10 minutes apiece for the speakers. It'll be about 4 minutes or so for the speaker, and after that we'll have about 6 minutes of questions. That right after you do your whatever you're going to present, and ask the audience for questions, and open it up for questions. And we might have some questions that have been received already, so if we do that, we'll pass them on to you to answer some of the questions. So as far as the timekeeper goes, Victor's going to have a yellow flag and a red flag, and it'll be like 4 minutes for speaking. At the 30-second mark prior to you, for your 4 minutes, he'll raise it once. When you have to close at the end of 4 minutes, he'll raise it again, and they'll do the same when it's time to close out at the end of 10 minutes. He'll have 2 red flags at that time, 30 seconds out, and at the time to close it out at the end. And I think everybody has a list on the table of the order of the presenters, so everybody that's on that list will present in the order. And let's go ahead and get started. And at this time, what I'd like to do is get Ms. Jody Amato from the Assessor's Office to speak on the Gallagher Amendment.
Sorry, I got to bring it down. God made me short. Good morning. I am Jody Amato, and I'm the Los Animas County Assessor. I'm here today to give you some information about the Gallagher Amendment and the impacts that the Gallagher Amendment is going to have on all entities across all 64 counties in Los Animas, or in Colorado, and specifically the impacts the Gallagher is going to have here in Los Animas County. In 1982, the Gallagher Amendment was introduced into the Colorado Constitution. The purpose of the Gallagher Amendment was to create equality across all property classifications. So what it did was it created 2 assessment rates, one for residential, which at the time was 21%, all other classes of property, which would be vacant, ag, commercial, industrial, oil and gas, personal property, those were set at 29%, and then oil and gas was jumped into its own class later on. What it was meant to do was to keep a 45-55% ratio between the property classes. The thought behind it was that residential would outpace all other classes of property, so that would be our largest tax base. Well, the RAR, residential assessment rate, what it does is it's driven by the statutory level of value. So every 2 years, all assessors' offices are charged with doing a reevaluation. All 64 counties do this. Well, the last reevaluation we just came through for 2017 and 2018, Denver Metro saw such a huge expansion and explosion of market value in their residential rate that they saw residential values jump anywhere from 20 to 69% increases in their residential market. Denver was a housing boom. Essentially, Colorado Springs up to Fort Collins and about 120 miles east or west of I-25 was a hotbed. You could not keep a house on the market. It was just insane. Well, one of the things that are charged at all assessors' offices and that the Department of Taxation is charged with is we have to be equal and have conformity across all 64 counties. So, just because the Denver metro area saw such an expansion and a huge increase in their residential market rates, what that did was, due to the Gallagher Amendment, it forces the RAR, the residential assessment rate, to be decreased. In 1982, it was at 21%, and from then, we have seen it decrease depending on valuations year to year. It went from 21 to 19 in 1983 to 18 in 87, 1991 to 92, it sat at 14%. Currently, we're sitting at 7.2. Last December, after the Legislative Council got all their numbers, the projected assessment rate for residential property only was looking around 6.11. So that's a drop from 7.2 to the 6.11 would have been a 15.14% decrease. Last week, we just got a preliminary number, and the Department of Taxation and Assessors, we will not officially put this number out until we have it as of January 15. Due to all of the oil and gas growth that Weld County had, it helped our RAR a little bit. So instead of going to 6.11%, our residential assessment rate for 2019 and 2020 looks like it will sit at 6.78%. That is still a decrease. That's a decrease of 5.83%. What this means to all entities and to every district that has tax dollars is you are going to see a decrease in the revenues coming into your districts. 6 school districts in Los Animas County overall, and this is an average for all 6 of my school districts, are going to see a loss in revenue of $151,714. Trinidad, RE1, will be impacted the most because they have the most residential population and properties within their district. We have 4 fire districts in our county. Overall, they are going to see an average of around $28,000 loss. That's going to severely impact a lot of our rural fire districts. City of Trinidad will see around $30,000 loss in revenue just from the residential properties. Our ambulance district will see a decrease of around $10,000 in residential properties. Los Animas County alone, because we encompass the entire county, we will see a loss of revenue of $154,431. So, districts knowing this, as we were going into last November, some districts took the foresight and went to the public to vote to see if they could either get their mill levies debruced or increase their mill levies, because they did know, and we as assessors and county officials and the Department of Taxation have been trying to educate and get the word out there that this RAR is going to have a financial impact to these districts. And depending on what this reassessment cycle does, the one we will start in 2019 and it will hold our values for 19 and 20, we could see a decrease in the RAR again in the year 2021, which will affect revenues 2021 and 2022. So, the Gallagher Amendment, unfortunately, there was a panel, I shouldn't say unfortunately, there was a panel that was put together last year. They went through, they tried to get some ideas and had a lot of roundtable sessions to come up with a solution to Gallagher. I don't know if we will ever be able to find one. It is a Colorado Constitution. The Legislative Council does get to make the final say on what the RAR sets. I, as the assessor, it will be handed down to me, and my job and duty is to implement it to all properties that are residential. And all other classes of property, such as ag, commercial, industrial, and vacant land, will remain at 29%, because that is how Gallagher set it, and it froze those classes at 29. So we will see a decrease in residential property taxes. Just on an average, I'm starting to do our residential reassessment for all of Los Animas County. I anticipate maybe seeing a 1 to 1.5% increase in residential values, but it's not going to be enough to cover the 5.8, or the 5.83% decrease we will see in the RAR. Are there any questions about Gallagher? Yes, Ms. Tara.
So Jody, the working group, you referenced that met in the off session. Have you heard it through your assessors group if there's going to be any legislation put forward?
The only bill that will be put forth is one that survived through that working group, was one that creates districts for all of Colorado. But the problem being, some of the Denver metro areas, their RARs would be less than the 6.78 estimated residential assessment rate, which I have a feeling voters are not going to be very set on that, knowing that their tax bill will be higher. The others would be Northeast Colorado. Their RAR would go from the estimated 6.78 to around 23%. So you're going to see rural Colorado and rural counties that their RAR is going to be higher than what the estimated is going to be, and I don't anticipate, my personal opinion, I don't see the public voting on that, because anything to change Gallagher is going to take, I believe, a 51% vote of the entire state. and that's going to be a hard sell. Yes?
Ms. Amato, I was just wondering for a point of clarification, so you're saying $151,000 revenue loss for school districts. Is this per school district or is this?
I averaged all 6. I can get you those numbers back in my office.
I was just curious, so is that divided among the school districts or is it just?
It's a conglomerate of all 6 school districts in Los Animas County.
Totally. Okay.
Yes, and Trinidad would be the most impacted because that is where all of our residential properties sit. And God bless them, they've already had a very tremendous downturn in their revenues. And the part that scares me when it comes to schools is they're already dealing with the negative factor. And they're not getting funded like they need to be. So this could be a severe impact to rural Colorado schools that are doing everything they can to make it function and to educate our children, and that's our future.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Hey Jody, one question I've had asked me is, when a person reaches 65 years of age, there's a reduction in their property taxes. Is there an effect that will happen with the Gallagher if it was repealed?
What you're referencing is the homestead exemption.
Right.
And when you are 65 years of age, have owned and occupied your home for the previous 10 consecutive years, you come to my office and we give you an application. And essentially what that does is that cuts off the first 50% of $200,000 in value. So in our county, essentially cuts your taxes in half. With Gallagher, when Gallagher does affect us, the state actually backfills all of the counties. So the money that we are receiving locally for the homestead exemption, the state backfills us. And in years when the state has revenue, they do that. In my 17 years, there has been 1 year that the state has stepped back and we have tabled and not backfilled, or in a sense, we haven't applied the homestead exemption. But when the state does not have revenue, homestead exemption does get denied. So Gallagher could possibly have an effect on that. Am I done? Thank you. Yes.
Doesn't Amendment 23 have a mechanism to backfill the loss for school districts?
Amendment 23, I'm not quite sure on that, Jim. I would have to do some research. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. I think that was something that I think that's been on everyone's mind, and we'll see what happens. By the way, the coffee has arrived in the back, so anyone who wants some coffee, you're welcome to get you some coffee. Next is Ms. Kim Gonzalez, and she's going to speak on the opioid issues that we have in our community.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kim Gonzalez. I'm the Public Health Director for Los Animas Huerfano County's District Health Department. I'm here today to talk to you guys about the opioid crisis and how did we get here. Some of the objectives that we're going to describe the scope of work and the impact of the opioid crisis in Los Animas, Huerfano, and Colorado as a whole. We're going to give some examples of how we're working to address the problem in both Los Animas and Huerfano County, and highlight some current solutions that's being applied throughout Colorado and with local collaborations. Both nationally and in Colorado, opioid use disorders have emerged as a significant public health concern. While prescription opioids can help people manage their pain, they can come from serious and potential risk and complications. Prescription opioids should be prescribed and used carefully. These drugs are chemically similar to heroin and can increase the risk of addiction or overdose, even if taken as prescribed. I'm going to summarize some of the fatal overdose trends across Colorado, Los Animas, and Huerfano County. So in 2017, we have seen over 72,000 people die from drug overdoses in the United States. 1 in every 10 minutes, and you'll probably see 8 through the 10 minutes that I'm going to speak today. Nearly 2/3 of those deaths involved prescription drugs. Opioids, prescription or illicit, were involved in 75% of those deaths. In Colorado, there were 1,012 overdose deaths in 2016. Of those, 500 260 were opioid involved, which were prescription or illicit or a combination of both. Prescription opioid deaths are on the rise again. In 2016, we saw 300, and in 2017, we saw 373. Heroin deaths holding steady in 2016 at 228 and 2017 at 224. Fentanyl deaths are on the rise. 2016 we had 49 and 2017 we're up to 81. Methadone deaths are holding steady as well at 56 in 2016 and 58 in 2017. The problem knows no regional, gender, age, or income, or other bounds. It's truly an epidemic that the CDC has developed as a public health epidemic. So since 2002 to 2014, Colorado has seen a 500% increase in drug overdose mortality deaths across the Colorado state. Los Animas and Huerfano County are in the highest quartiles in those counties. Your lowest quartiles would be Yuma, Washington, Cheyenne, Mineral, San Juan. So as we go back and we look at some of the drug overdose deaths across the U.S. So back in 1979, motor vehicle deaths were 23 deaths per 100,000. The highest death rate in the United States at that time. Next came firearms at 15 deaths per 100,000, then drug overdose deaths at 3 per 100,000. Jumping forward in 2011, we have 14 deaths in overdose. We have 11 in motor vehicle and with motor and firearm deaths at 12. So we have seen 3 waves in the rise of the opioid overdose deaths. We first have seen prescription, we've seen heroin, and now we're seeing a rise in synthetic opioid overdose deaths, which include tramadol, fentanyl, prescription, or illicitly manufactured. So going forward, in Los Animas County, if you look at your local data, there have been 9 prescription opioid-related deaths in Los Animas County from 2013 to 2017. There have been 4 in Huerfano County. This translates to 9.6 to 13.4 deaths per 100,000 Colorado residents. Between 2013 and 2017, Delta County had the lowest rate at 1.8 deaths per 100,000. So if you look at the cost of this epidemic going forward, the past opioid epidemic cost of $1 trillion from 2001 to 2016, which was a 15-year span. Going forward, they're projecting the cost from 2017 to 2020, which is a 3-year span, at $500 billion. So how did we get here? We have 259 million opioid prescriptions were dispensed in 2013, enough for every American adult to have a bottle of pills every year. It's the perfect storm, which causes the increase that comes from many directions, whether it's pain management, under treatment of pain, whether it's the 5th vital sign, drug companies advertising or promoting, whether it's MAT clinics, drugs that are very powerful and highly addictive, or it's scamming with doctors, pharmacies, physicians. So over 70% obtain opioids from their friends, relatives, medicine cabinets. 17% are patients who started on opioids but began non-medical use with their leftovers. After surgery, there are 6% that started on opioids after post-surgical pain and are new persistent users after 1 year. So what's being done? Going forward, the health department has worked with the Drug Task Force, which is Partners for a Drug-Free Community, that was implemented by Judge Leslie Gerbach as well as Marty Maloff from Probation. We have many partners that include the local law enforcement, county commissioners, city officials, public health, the college, school districts, CTC, Health Solutions, Local Citizens, Crossroads Probation, Senate Bill 94, the Family Resource Centers, local positions, and more. We work on state and local level efforts to combat opioid epidemic and resources. They have life skills training within the school districts in Los Animas County. We work on take-back medication awareness and take-back bins. And there's an additional work being done. We also work in our WIC program, which provides education to our clients that are pregnant and postpartum, especially with women on the use of marijuana and the opioid effects. We have a New Start clinic, which we administer Vivitrol injections in both Los Animas and Huerfano County's health departments with the partnership of the 3rd Judicial District, Crossroads Probation, Samaritan Clinic, and all current pharmacies. We also have medication take-back bins with Mount San Rafael Hospital, and we're working on a new site in Walsenburg. We are offering hepatitis C screenings in both Los Animas and Huerfano County to prevent the possible outbreak of hepatitis C or HIV coming forward with the opioid epidemic. Regional Health Connectors are working on regional southeastern coalitions. We have our CTC risk and protective factors with the youth, and we're working with mental health first aid for youth, as well as different initiatives within the school districts in both counties. We are also working with the Colorado Consortium, Dr. Robert Bullock, as well as Jessica Eady. We've provided provider education workshops in 3 counties, Los Animas, Huerfano, and Otero, with great attendance going forward. We also distribute public awareness materials, take back meds, OP rescue, naloxone brochures. There's an app out there that we push as well. We have also provided overdose prevention work with providing naloxone training and naloxone for the local PD, local sheriff's department in both counties. We're working on getting naloxone for our local first responders. And if you have any other questions, please let me know.
Thank you. I know that there's a lot with the opioid issues, and didn't have any time to really get questions from the audience. But maybe if anyone has questions, I'm sure she'd be open to contacting her and getting those questions answered. At this time, just remember there's coffee in the back. This time I'd like to have Ms. Tony DeAngelis from the Trinidad State Junior College. Good
morning. My name is Tony DeAngelis, and I'm the Executive Director of the TSJC Educational Foundation. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning to talk about the Foundation's role in the community in supporting the college and the ways the Foundation can partner with others to benefit the college and the community. So just a little history. The Foundation was established in 1968 as a private nonprofit corporation with a mission to promote the growth and development of Trinidad State Junior College through its focus on raising, accepting, and managing private gifts that benefit TSJC. The Foundation is made up of a diverse group of volunteer community members that oversee the operations of the Foundation. Foundation members serve as an ambassador of the college and of the Foundation by sharing knowledge of issues, activities, and the need for community investment in order to continually foster greater private support for TSJC and its students. While private dollars raised by the Foundation do not replace other revenue streams, private dollars do allow the Foundation to bridge the gap between the needs and resources of the college. In the last 10 years alone, the Foundation has assisted the college to the tune of nearly $4 million. $2.5 million in scholarships, $1 million in programs and instructional support, and $500,000 in capital improvements. Now I'd like to touch base on some of the immediate and long-term areas of need where the Foundation is providing support already, and other areas where the Foundation is seeking additional funding and long-term support. Recently, the Foundation extended $65,000 a year in financial support for the addition of a full-time faculty position at the college. This commitment is for a 3-year period in order to provide sustainability and allow for success. According to enrollment data, the specific areas, math, English, and science, showed high student demand and were in the most critical need of additional instructional support. Another goal was to begin the process of increasing transfer degree attainment for students, which had declined at Trinidad State in recent years. In fall of 2018, the college began use of the funds, hiring an additional biology faculty member. Next, TSJC recently announced an innovative partnership with the University of Colorado Denver to launch a teacher preparation for rural education program, also known as TPREP. The TPREP program offers a bachelor's degree in elementary education that can be completed entirely at TSJC's Trinidad campus. The program will include field experience in local elementary schools for all 4 years. Scholarship support for students pursuing the program will be critical going forward. Trinidad State is one of a handful of 2-year colleges now planning to offer a future Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree. Every year, Colorado needs more nurses than it produces. It's projected that there could be a shortage of 13,000 nurses in Colorado by 2025. In order to meet the challenges of the new bachelor's program, the nursing department is seeking $32,000 for simulation lab updates, professional development to train in new simulation technology, and costs associated with seeking accreditation. The foundation's annual fundraising event raised over $18,000 for the nursing program this past spring, leaving $14,000 in needed support. The Loudon Heinrichsey Archaeology Museum serves the Trinidad community in a number of ways, and as a component of the college, it provides support for natural sciences, including archaeology, geology, anthropology, and other sciences. It also provides educational experiences for school groups, tourists, and the Trinidad community in general. As a repository of area artifacts, it serves an important role in storing and maintaining the history of the region. The museum is in need of attention, however. There is a need to upgrade exhibits, offer new programs, and generally infuse energy into its programs. TSJC is beginning to establish relationships with agencies such as the Great Sand Dunes National Park, the Nature Conservancy, and Pinyon Canyon Maneuver Site. Nearly $21,000 is needed to take those next step forward, and the foundation has committed $5,000 for the initial phase of planning. For our long-term vision is supported by the 80 endowments under management. Most are scholarship endowments. The establishment of more program-specific endowments remains a viable strategy to provide long-term dedicated support, thereby increasing sustainability of programmatic needs, such as the gunsmithing program. Other long-term projects include infrastructure needs identified by the college's leadership, such as renovation of a library archive room, securing mobile laboratory technology, addressing our aging residence halls, and creating a student recreation center. An ultimate expression of long-term support is embodied by the Society of 1925, which was established to honor and thank those who remember Trinidad State Junior College Educational Foundation with an estate gift. Estate gifts not only represent important future investments in the college, they also help inspire today's accomplishments. TSJC remains committed to providing high-quality educational opportunities to the students we serve, and an estate gift represents an important investment in these future generations. So in closing, TSJC is a major economic driver for this community, and TSJC's student population is a key factor. A strong, robust student population at TSJC enhances not only the college, but the city and local area. The foundation encourages partnership with the college to explore opportunities for programs that will grow enrollment to keep TSJC's existence as a thriving institution for the next 100 years. The Foundation's mission will continue to be accomplished through generous, loyal donors and community partners that seek to encourage and invigorate student success, as well as strengthen the college's capacity to enhance programmatic, instructional, and capital needs. Our hearts lie in supporting TSJC and our local community. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to future discussions. Are there specific questions? No questions? If I still have time, I have a couple other areas that I would like to mention. I just didn't know if I had time. So I'd just like to talk a little bit too about our TSJC robotics program. It's been very successful. It started in fall of 2009 with a team of students designing and building an autonomous robot able to navigate several challenge courses. The team's first robot was one of only 2 surviving robots out of 26 entries from all other four-year colleges and universities in Colorado. It marked the beginning of a legacy, and since then the TSJC robotics team has continued to leave their mark. The team continuously takes new approaches when creating their robots, such as 3D printing the robot parts and creating their own custom printed circuit boards. In May, the team continued its success with a trip to the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah after an impressive performance at the Mars Yard at Johnson Space Center in Houston last year. Annually, the team seeks to raise $10,000 to pay for needed parts and travel so that they can put their skills to the test and witness some of the best robots in action. As a feeder to our TSJC robotics team, middle and high school teams from across southern Colorado and northern New Mexico compete in the fall, each fall in the SoCo Best Robotics Challenge at TSJC. Using the National Boosting Engineering, Science, and Technology, or BEST rules, students design, build, complete, and compete in 6 weeks' time. The mission of SoCo Best is to engage and inspire students to pursue careers in engineering, science, and technology through participation in a sports-like science and engineering-based robotics competition, while preparing students to be technologically literate and better prepared to enter higher education, pursuing a STEM discipline and the workforce. Last year, the event hosted 10 teams, and the budget to put on such an event is upwards of $30,000. Middle school coach David Bills noted that Trinidad has a great collegiate robotics program, TSJC does, and their program wants to build a feeder program for that. Students can spend years in robotics and follow those skills all the way up to the college level, all right here in Trinidad, he said. And he thinks Trinidad State has really given middle school students and high school students the legacy they want to continue to build upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Up next is Ms. Deb Hartman from the Cogburn E-Learning Center.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today, and Happy New Year to all of you. I've been on vacation mode, and I'm used to talking to children 3 foot and shorter, so bear with me. As Phil said, I'm with South Central Council of Governments, and we have 2 centers now. One here in Trinidad, the Early Learning Center, and that one just celebrated our 20th anniversary, so that is a feat of monumental success. We just recently purchased a center in Walsenburg as well. Our board is a bi-county, or our agency is a bi-county agency, so it was imperative to service the needs of both counties. Both centers are licensed in the state of Colorado, and both centers are 4-star ratings with Colorado Shine's quality rating system. The Trinidad Center is licensed for 120 full-time students with waiting lists in every single program. The Walsenburg Center is licensed for 50, and they're going strong as of September 1st, 2018. We have infant toddler programs, we have preschool programs, we have before school, after school, full day, full year, early interventional services. Both centers produce about 90% proficiency rates of children prior to going to kindergarten. If you look at proficiency rates in the school districts, you'll see that that is quite the developmental feat that we are so proud of, and that is inclusive of children with special education as well. 90% proficiency developmental rates. It's quite a success story. Since 1998, we've passed about 2,000 plus students through the center with the help of South Central Council of Governments and our governing board. Our governing board consists of county commissioners and city councilmen from both Trinidad and the Walsenburg area, and the mayor of Kim. So that is quite the support net for getting us where we are today. South Central Council of Governments invests in children. Other council of governments just give a grant here and there, but South Central Council of Governments decided 20 years ago to invest and actually be a part of those programs and have a say in those educational programs for young children. South Central Council of Governments also has helped us through peaks and valleys of funding and revenue adventures, we'll call that. We depend on grants such as Bar and I and Temple Hayne Buell that offer operational grants. The Colorado Preschool Program funding for half-day per pupil organized revenue. The Colorado Child Care Assistance Program, and we're partnered with DHS. We're on a day-to-day communication. We work with those agencies so very well. We also have the private pay sector, and we were beneficiaries of the House Bill 13-1291, and Senator Crowder was instrumental in helping us with that feat. Once we got to that level of advocacy of not just dealing with children, not just dealing with families, but advocating as to what our Los Animas and Huerfano County needs. What does that look like on the floor of those House bills being presented? And I thank you for that. We were privy to that funding for 2 years, and then that funding went away, and Los Animas County stepped in and helped subsidize that funding for infant and toddler programs that was so needed. As an example, we were receiving like $18 a day for a whole day of services, and that House bill and the county's supplement helped us to take that to $44 reimbursement per day for those services offered. It's quite expensive. The Child Adult Food Care Program, we get reimbursement from that, and our local Hula Early Childhood Council has been instrumental in helping us with those peaks and valleys and maintaining that level of quality, not just mediocre services. What do you think an early childhood center does? They follow child care licensing regs, Colorado Shine regs, the health department regs, fire regs, agency regs. They provide 3 square meals a day to 170 kids in both counties. 3 a day times 5 is 1,800 meals per week. That's a lot of food. That's a lot of teachers' works. They wipe the tears, they wipe the noses, they befriend, they be parent advocates, they be moms and dads away from moms and dads when moms and dads are at work or at school. They monitor immunization records. They implement health physicals to get those in place that every child enrolled has those medical foundations. They monitor growth and behavior, growth and development and behavior, typicals and non-typicals. They make referrals for special services. They monitor those special services and follow up with those special services. Just the teachers. They sweep, they clean, they study, they lesson plan, they sing, they jump, they chase, they laugh, they cry. They supervise separated parents and families. They do supervised visits. They report to DHS. They're mandated reporters. They report to schools as to what they can expect coming up the pipe. They report to the courts as to what's going on in those families and what does that look like. They provide documentation like you can't believe. And the list goes on and on and on. And when there's time, they get to teach. Not only ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but life. What's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, in a loving way. We get kids ready for school, but we get kids ready for life. In 30 years of this profession, I can tell you our culture is vastly changing. Our young parents, our high-risk parents, our busy parents, our good parents, our detached parents, our separated families, and that's what we do, just as in a nutshell. God gets us up each day to face those challenges. Most providers have Medicaid. That's the level of finance that they're at. We have our lifers who do this work because that's what they were created to do, and I thank God for those people. And then we have the revolving door who find out that that's a lot of work for not so much money. So they come and they go, and some of them get their degrees, and we can help them through that process. But then they get their degrees and maybe they move, or maybe they go up the charts to the K through 12. It's little pay, but it's a lot of love and it's a lot of learning, and they teach with their hearts and their souls. And I thank God for them every day. In 30 years, the past few years have been the most validating and supported thanks to COG, House Bill 13-1291, the Hula Early Childhood Council, the Office of Early Childhood, the Governor's Office, Temple Wayne Buell, the Bar and I. And when the House bill ran out, then the county came through for us to keep that level of sustainability, and I thank God for that every day. That's what we strive for, that level of sustainability. Other centers in the state of Colorado are closing. Centers in our county, our bi-county area are closing, and we pick up the slack however we can. We beat every bush for funding. The new governor ran his campaign mainly on referring to education, specifically universal preschool and full-day preschool and full-day kindergarten. And I think he won that campaign for no other reason. I pray to make that effort will be made good and for fully funded full-day preschool and kindergarten, and that will turn into higher per pupil organized revenues for our school. I pray someday that negative factor goes away and people start investing into our kids, our little kids all the way up to our big kids. I pray that Los Animas County and Morfino County will do that and take our voices and paint a picture for our state representatives to say, what does that House bill look like in Morfino and Los Animas County? I pray that you'll invest in kids.
Yep.
Yes.
Let's go and take a question here, so
Okay.
we gotta go move on, and we have one question here.
Ms. Hartman, can you enlighten the room with the need for both counties for additional services for what you provide?
Right now, we're getting established in Morfino County, but there's a definite need, and they've proven that. We based our licensing on that number that they're servicing. But in Los Animas County, I said that we're licensed for 120. We have in and out of that building about 130 kids per day per kid. But we also have waiting lists in every single program, ages 1 up to 6, and that's what gets us that vision of what's coming up in kindergarten in our school districts as well. But that PPOR dollar is instrumental in, you can build a building, but then you have to sustain that building. And that's what I've been chasing for the last 20 years, is to sustain that building.
Yeah, let's go and take another question, because we've got to try to stay within our time.
I'm Joel Canales. I was just wondering that I'm very much involved with what they call the soaring eaglets here in Trinidad, Colorado. And the soaring eaglets is kind of a branch off of people with autism. And my daughter is president of this board that we're starting to start up again. And I was just wondering, a couple of years ago that we had met with the COG and we had a big meeting, and it seemed like everybody was on board. And then all of a sudden it just seemed like everything went away. My question is to you is this, that we as Soaring Eaglets, between the counties of Los Animas and Huerfano counties, we have 150 families with autistic children. 150. And these kids are not let out to go to school. They're kind of cramped in and stuff. My point of view would be, I would like to see more representation to get qualified teachers down here to help us promote this and take care of these kids. Even if it's for an hour, to give these parents a break where they could go to Safeway and just walk away and just give them a break. And I would like to see more with COG, Walter. I'd like to see more done with COG and Soaring Eaglets to get together and get this program started, because we actually need this for our children. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
That's a great point. We did start out with that, and Soaring Eagles kind of got their place at the community center, and the committee kind of dwindled after they got established. But it's not just for children with autism, because we're finding more and more greater need for special needs. And it could just be speech, it could be the social emotional aspect. That's what I was talking about with that parenting. We need respite care for those families that just get drained. We need professional care for the teachers. The teachers don't have all that it takes to be all and do all. Can't just be told what to do. We need direct services. And the more as the need goes up for special circumstances, the less the funding goes down. And our local BOCES team has been cut drastically.
Our Soaring Eagles will be involved with that also.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Stick up for kids. That's my job. That's what I have to
Yeah, just a reminder, like I said, the speakers today we're trying to stay within that time frame of 10 minutes, like 4 minutes to present and maybe 5 to 6 minutes to get at questions from the audience. So it's trying to see if we can do that as best as we can. Next is Ms. Tara Marshall from the Space Creek to present about the Space Creek Trinidad.
Good morning, my name is Tara Marshall. I'm the Development Services Director for the City of Trinidad, and I'm here today to talk about one of our current development projects. Space to Create was announced in 2015. We acquired the property in 2016 and began project development. We finished project development in early 2017 and began funding. In February of 2018, we were funded at $17.1 million based on our project development. Now, that number was based on bidding the project, the construction, the design out in 2016 when we did project development. So the next step was to go to subcontracting. When the subcontracting came in, we would go to financial close. And an issue came up when we began doing the subcontracting. We saw 30% increase between 2016 and 2018 in the project cost. So this is not unusual, and it's not specific to this development project. 30% cost increases are happening across the board in Colorado. Not to mention subcontractors were bidding premium prices to come out of Denver and Colorado Springs. So how are we going to address a $3 million cost overrun? We did 3 things. The first thing we did is value engineering. The second thing we did is we subcontracted and looked at New Mexico and Texas. So we have subcontractors coming out of Amarillo and Albuquerque. And before, I must say, that was the governor's suggestion. So when we talked to him directly about cost overruns, he said, look at New Mexico, look at Texas. That's exactly what we did. The third thing is ArtSpace, our partner developer, cut their development fee by $550,000. They cut that development fee by 50%. So we attended a meeting in late December in Denver. We were down to an $875,000 gap. So we came to the table, the city, DOLA, Colorado Creative Industries, the Office of Economic Development, and the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, and History Colorado. And I'm happy to announce that as of Monday, the entire gap was closed. We actually went over the amount that we needed, so we're going to be able to do some build out in the community space. So we now have an $18.6 million project. We're back to where we were in February last year. We're fully funded. The difference is the subcontracting has been done. It's been locked in. So we're expecting financial close to happen in the next month. And then we're expecting construction to happen within the first quarter. So in kind of closing, I wanted to provide that update. And also let City Council know we did get the state historic preservation tax credits of $1 million approved as of Monday. So thank you for that state historic preservation tax credit that Senator Crowder and Representative Lewis voted to continue this last year. I want to also address a couple of misconceptions about the project within the community. It is going to have 41 living spaces. Yes, it is being marketed to artists. And yes, the project was originally conceived as an artist live-work space. However, the tax credits that we got are affordable housing tax credits. Those tax credits are available for anyone who qualifies for affordable housing. So let me also explain that this is not a public housing project. This is affordable housing. The rent is expected to be between $800 and $1,100 a month. You must have a way to provide that income. You must pass a background check. You must have employment to be able to pay that rent. You also have to pass a criminal background check and a credit check. Finally, when will that happen? Well, we can't start the renting and filling the housing until 6 months prior to the opening of the project. We're expecting for the project to open in the summer of 2020. We're expecting to hold seminars in the fall of this year, and those seminars, which will be worked with Creative District and Art Space, will provide to the public information for how you apply to live there. I want to stress again that nurses, we have our sheriff here, Sheriff Navarrete, sheriff's deputies would qualify. I mean, anyone who qualifies based on their income, teachers, wait staff, college professors, perhaps, this affordable housing is available. It's not just artist live-work housing. So I want to make sure that's clearly understood. That's something we're continually hearing about in the community as a negative about the project. So I want to make sure you understand that, yes, the project's alive. It is fully funded. We did have a $3 million gap. We cut that to $875,000. We've closed that gap. We expect construction to start at the end of the first quarter, and we expect to start taking applications next fall. Do you have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Where is the space to create going to go into again?
Okay, it's located on 2 campuses at 200 to 228 West Main.
Okay.
That's the old Franck,
Okay.
Toller, and ILO building.
Okay.
There will be 13 live-work spaces there, and those will be marketed toward artists.
Okay.
Those apartments are built out as live-work space.
Okay.
There will be 28 affordable housing units located on Elm Street, across from where Buckets used to be, and right next to the train station that the Lackeys own. Right there on that empty lot. That will be a brand new building. It will have 28 housing units. Okay. Are there any other questions? So please, if you hear anything in the community about the project and where it is in its development, please send them to City Hall, and we'd be happy to visit with them about it. We're very excited about this project. I want to underscore the fact that the city has invested over 4 years $2 million and are receiving for every dollar they put in so many more dollars coming back. This is an $18 million project that the city's investing $2 million in. It was our first development project. In closing, I would like to announce, and the mayor gave me the green flag to do this, we have purchased the Fox Theater. The city is now the owner of the Fox Theater. We are working with Miss Dana Crawford. This is going to be our next big real estate development project. So we're excited to be working with Dana, just as we were standing in front of you 4 years ago, excited to work with ArtSpace. Ms. Miles?
Yes, Tara, when we last went up to Denver to meet with ArtSpace, we talked about possibly having a public information meeting in January.
I think we'll have a public information meeting. I think we're going to be so consumed with closing financially in January, it will probably follow that in February.
Okay.
But,
separate visit.
Yes. So what Mayor Pro Tem Miles is talking about is that when ArtSpace, when we get this financial close done, we're coming back to town and we're going to do a large public information meeting where you can have all your questions answered. Although nobody really had any questions today. Yes, Mr. Lackey?
Tara, first what I'd like to do is thank you and the city and everybody for taking this project on, because in the annals of Trinidad's history, this is probably one of the largest projects that the city has undertaken, for years. We've got plenty of those on the table right now, which is a good thing to see for Trinidad. But the main thing is you all are taking the town in a different direction, which is going to generate a lot of activity, a lot of finance, a lot of positive stuff for the community, so that we can take care of the kids that need education and all the other things. So with every negative, which I hate these meetings when you got to bring up society's ills, but I love to see this fact that we've got a couple projects here that are going to generate income and a position of Trinidad as being the place to be able to take care of those that are less fortunate and present all the great things that we have in this part of the world. I just want to say thank you very much for your work, the city, and everybody else that's been involved. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Howard.
Next we'll have Mr. Gregson, City Manager, and this will be about a 15-minute presentation, and he's going to present the vision for Fisher's Peak project. Greg?
Fisher's Peak, I think, is probably one of the most iconic things that exists in Trinidad. It's on this thing right here, on the seal for the college. It's on all sorts of things, but it's a piece of private property, unavailable and cannot be visited by anybody in the public unless you trespass on it, which I know some people have done over the years, but it's one that's been unavailable. And this project will make this property available at some point in the near future. It's an amazing project. It's something that is very significant to Trinidad and the surrounding area. It started as an idea about October of 2017, October, November, and there were a group of local people that got together and said, why don't we just talk about buying Fisher's Peak? I don't know if anybody had ever given it a whole lot of thought recently about doing that, but at the time we were talking about buying about 4,100 acres that included most of the peak itself. Shortly after that, I contacted Wade Shelton with the Trust for Public Land and asked if they would be interested in partnering with us on this project, because even 4,100 acres seemed like an awful big bite for the city of Trinidad. He immediately said, why don't we just go after the entire 19,200 acre ranch? And that has been the vision that we've been following since that time, of negotiating with the current owner and coming up with a purchase agreement for the entire ranch. And I want to thank the Trust for Public Land and the Nature Conservancy for all the work they have done in achieving that purchase contract. It was signed, I think, in October this year. The purchase price for the entire ranch is $25.45 million. So far, we have 2 funding partners that have granted or committed significant amount of money to the project. The first one was GOCO, put forward a $7 million grant for the property. And recently, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, out of their hunting and fishing license revenues, there's a fund that funds these kind of things, have put forward $7.5 million. So this is a pretty significant start to funding this property. The Trust for Public Land and the Nature Conservancy are going to be closing on this property at the end of February, and they will put forward the match, the difference between the amount raised in grants at this point and the purchase price So we have a long way to go in order to raise the rest of the money necessary for this project. And in addition, there's been some discussion about raising more money than the 25.45 so that there isn't any burden on the city of Trinidad or any local people or the state in the future to manage this land. That if we can put together some sort of endowment or trust, the money raised from that set aside would be used to manage this ranch. This is a very significant property. It has, depending on how you count it, 3 or 4 exits off of I-25. It has, depending on also who you talk to, somewhere between 60 and 75 miles of roads on the property right now. Not roads you may consider roads, but they're roads. And so there's a lot of access to it, and the owner of the property, when he was alive and he was building these roads, he designed them so you can't see them from the interstate. You can maybe see glimpses of a couple of them here and there, but for the most part, these roads are hidden from people driving the interstate. So there are ways that you can access the property without making it look like it's just a major development. And we, over the next 2 to 4 years, depending on how quickly we can put together management plans for this property, will begin to make it available to the public. Over the next couple of years, there'll be guided tours for people who want to look at or experience the property. Also, on December 17th, we kicked off a visioning process because we want to know from the public what your preferred uses are of this property. This is not something dictated to the people of Trinidad or this area. This is something that we want you to be involved in helping to define the management plans for this property, how it will be used, how significant it is to you, how you would like to use the property in the future. All of that will require developing a lot of management plans, though, and how we appropriately develop the property for conservation, recreation, hunting and fishing, well, not fishing so much, but hunting, and how to best manage the property, both from the forestry, with the wildlife, with recreation access. There's a lot of components of this thing, and we definitely need the public to be involved in this to show direction and where you want to go with this. The current name of the property is the Crazy French Ranch. The promotion at this point is to change it to the Fisher's Peak Ranch because everyone seems to define it with Fisher's Peak. We have a consultant hired to do the visioning process. They are called Root House. They're out of the Boulder area. And for those of you who would like to write to Mimi Mather with that organization to give some input, the email address is fisherspeakranch@gmail.com. If you want to call and talk to her, the phone number is 303-648-1423. So we want lots of public involvement and engagement in this project. The public has shown that you are interested in this project. When the application was out for the GOCO grant, there was a call out to people to provide letters of support for the project, and they received 48 to help GOCO make their decision. And that's one of the most significant public involvement processes that the Trust for Public Land or Nature Conservancy have witnessed in all of the purchases they've been involved in. So that's great. When Mimi Mather was here on the 17th, she spent all day at the Los Animas Grill meeting with people in the public, and I don't think there was any time during that entire day where not 4 to 6 people were sitting and talking to her and giving input of what they'd like to see happen with this ranch. Later in the evening, we had a public process at SCRT, and we drew 90 to 100 people for that. So I want to thank everybody who's been very much involved in this project and is willing to give your input, because that's the way this will become a successful project. We have people here from the Trust for Public Land and with Nature Conservancy. If you want to ask them any questions directly, I would also be more than willing to answer some questions.
And Greg, you might mention some about that, one of the areas that we might also allow is maybe some agriculture, cattle raising, that might be.
The ranch has been used for cattle grazing in the past. In fact, this last season, I think there were 250 cow-calf units on the property. So that is something that would help manage the property to some extent because they'll keep some of the brush and growth down on it. One of the issues that is on the property right now is there's honey locust on the property. So if any of you know anything that likes to eat honey locust, you probably would be interested in finding out what that might be, because that is starting to invade the property.
Great.
Yes.
You might also mention the access it gives us to other public lands and what the total area is going to be. As I recall, it was around 50,000.
Yeah, with the two state wildlife areas that are adjacent to this property, and then the Raton has shown some interest in cooperating with us in allowing access to the Sugary Canyon state property. Between all of those, we're talking about public access to almost 50,000 acres. It's very significant. Over the last few months, the owner has been cooperating, maybe in the last couple of years, has been cooperating with Colorado Parks and Wildlife to grant them access across the property to get to the state wildlife areas, and that's something that we fully plan to continue, because if state parks and wildlife can only get to their wildlife areas through direct access they have, that means driving all the way to Sugary Canyon and back north. And so right now it's about an hour and a half if you take that travel to get to their property they have to manage. If they have access across this ranch property, it changes it to like 10 minutes. So their partnership in this is very significant to us, and being able to manage the entire ranch as one unit along with the wildlife properties. There's a lot of wildlife on the property, but a little bit of training I have in wildlife management, probably enough to be dangerous, is wildlife has to be managed if they're going to live in an area with people. And yes.
Has the city of Trinidad thought of additional to your inquiries with the community, putting a steering committee together of other local entities or elected officials to help this process through?
I don't think we're at that point yet, but we surely will be doing that as we go to start working with the Trust for Public Land and Nature Conservancy and others in developing the management plans for this. We need lots of participation. Yes?
I'd just like to thank Wade and the crew and everybody and all the agencies that have come together to recognize Trinidad and our icon, and to recognize the future, and that the gateway for all of our Texas traffic is coming through Trinidad, Colorado, the diversity of the jobs that will be available, and what Colorado is known for, outdoor recreation. So I salute you guys and thank you so much. What a huge thing for the city.
One quick question.
Yes.
How long has it been called the Crazy French Ranch?
I'm guessing since the mid to late 80s. I think that's about the time they started acquiring it. That was my understanding.
The reason I asked, I didn't know if there's historical value to that name to it.
Yeah.
So I would just ask that that be looked at before you change the name.
But it's the Young family is the one that named it that.
In 1991, it is when they took possession. I was the manager of that ranch up until then, from 1984. That was the Bird Ranch.
Okay.
Well, Crazy French kind of has kind of a nice ring to it.
I actually had one comment from someone when I started talking about this and said, "Don't you think that's kind of a derogatory name?" And so I had to tell them, well, the owners are the ones that named it that. So.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, you might mention that there will be maybe another couple of community engagements.
Yes, as we move forward, we're continuing this visioning process, and Mimi Mather with Root House will be here at least a couple more times in the next month or so in order to gather more input. So even if you don't want to write or call her, she will be here to provide, so you can provide some direct input.
Thank you.
Next up is Representative Lewis. Ms. Lewis, would you please come forward?
Good morning. Thank you for waiting for me this morning. You didn't have to do that. I just had to come in on 100 miles, live on the eastern end of the county, and we were really cold this morning. So I'm sorry you had to wait on me. I didn't intend for you to do that. In fact, I was texting to Tara to say, go ahead and start. I'm coming slow, and I'll be there 15 to 20 minutes late. Thank you for your prayers. I have this new gray hair that's curly because I didn't have hair not too long ago after the chemo treatments. And I thank you all for your prayers. And then actually when everybody else got to go home from Denver on May the 8th, I had to stay there and do 30 radiation treatments. So it was really a big day on July 13th when I really did get to go home. So I've been enjoying being at the ranch and being home, and that's why I came from there this morning. I had a young lady out at the ranch a few days ago, and she worked in a daycare. And she actually grew up on a ranch, but she's working in a daycare now. And I asked her, well, what's that like? And she says, well, got a bunch of little kids. We're all confined in a little area. Everybody's got a runny nose this time of year. And just a lot of people just don't want to get along together. And then she says, well, Representative Lewis, I understand you work at the Capitol. I said, yeah, kind of all the same. So that's where we're headed. Of course, we swear in on Friday. And I thank you for your support, and to get back to Denver, I'm looking at several important things that we're going to try to get accomplished. I was put back on Transportation Committee as well as what they call Rural Affairs now, Rural Affairs and Local Government. It pains me at no end that they took the word agriculture out, because agriculture is the basis of taxes across Colorado, and especially House District 64 that I represent. It is a rural area, but farming and ranching, agriculture is the basis of the taxes for all 9 counties that I represent, and so I'll never want to live that one down if they've taken the word agriculture out. So I'm on Rural Affairs and Local Government. I was at the SMART hearings on December the 19th for agriculture, and got to hear the commissioner there talk about what's going on with the Department of Ag. I asked a lot of questions. That's my job. And I asked those questions because those of you that are my constituents send me those emails. You call me, and so then I follow up on it. And I do the best I can to get answers. Sometimes you have to ask 5 times, but you do get an answer. We are submitting our bills. The very first bill that's already written that I am doing is about library districts. I actually have a county, Elbert County, who would like to elect their trustees for their board. That this won't be a mandatory thing. This would only be elective. If the county so chooses to elect their library board of directors, then they can do that. So a special district bill. Of course, there's 99 special districts in the state of Colorado, so it's a big deal. And about every time I've tried to get a hold of the lobbyists for the special districts, those gentlemen are busy, because there's a lot of legislation that goes on with special districts. So it's a non-mandatory bill. It's something that can be either or. I understand that Elbert County as well as Weld County are very interested in getting this bill put through. We'll just see where it goes from there. So that bill is the first bill out. The other 2 bills, of course, I'm running another conservation easement bill. I may be the only person in the room that doesn't agree with what's going on here with Fisher's Peak, I guess, because I knew it as the Old Berg Ranch. I was there as a young girl up there on the Old Berg Ranch. And if we all think we have a crystal ball and we know what's going to happen in 20 to 30 years, I want you to share that with me so that we all know what's going to be coming in 20 to 30 years. In the paperwork I read, it talks about non-development, but yet you just talked about development of roads. You just talked about how we don't want development up on this ranch, but yet in our part of the state, we have less development than anywhere. We keep bringing out the word development, but yet in southeast Colorado, my district, there are more land acres in conservation easements than the rest of the state. So with over 6,500 conservation easements, some of those in default, some of those disallowed, some of those still being disallowed, that's why I'm still going to run a conservation easement bill. Now, I'm a land use candidate, I'm a land use person. I grew up owning land, but I don't own it alone, I own it with the banker. We work hard, and we make things happen. Sure, I could give in. I could take a conservation easement myself, and I'd be wearing $1,000 boots in here instead of these little $200 ones. But you know what? I love my 6 children, and I would never put something in writing that in 20, 30 years, because I don't have this crystal ball, I don't know what's coming. We all sit in southeast Colorado on things called minerals. And as you know, this county has done real well with minerals in several years back. And we're not seeing that right now, but it could come again. So we're dealing with people, with groups, with real estate groups. They're not even land trusts anymore. They're real estate groups that want to control southeast Colorado, and they want to control Los Animas County. And I can say this with proof, because at every angle that I have fought, and one of the reasons why I decided to run for House District 64 is because of things just like this. We have been losing our private property. In fact, there are some counties, look at Mesa County. Congressman McGinnis, they're thinking about having county statutes that won't allow more conservation easements just because of the loss, because there is no development. There's no land left to develop on. So even though we have a huge county, the largest in the state, 660,000 acres belong to either federal or state land. That's larger than most counties are. We have lost land, and as you know, just a couple years ago, our courthouse was open 3 days a week. So we just keep connecting the dots, and as a state representative, that's what I do. And that's why I was asked to talk before Senator Crowder, because he's going to get up here and defute everything I have to say. Because even though he and I are good friends, he looks at things a little differently, and we all do at the state capitol. So when I connect the dots, I look back at Senate Bill 143 last year, which we gave more money to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and now they've already given $7.5 million. They're going to put $7.5 million into this project. GOCO spent over $7 million last year for a little piece of property in Bent County called that Southern Plains Land Trust did. And now GOCO is helping Land Trust to purchase land. I don't think that's quite right either. If we think the state of Colorado is going to do all these wonderful things like early learning, all-day kindergarten, fix our roads, where's that money going to come from? Maybe GOCO needs to be helping to take care of our parks, the parks that need help. Maybe that money needs to be used for what we already have that are not being taken care of, instead of buying more. This country and this state keeps acquiring more government. Who's going to pay for it? You, the taxpayers. You that have to, here in a little bit, you're going to file your taxes. And you will be helping to fund all of that. So the conservation easement bill is one I will be running once again. I still believe that we need a complete database and a map. I still believe there needs to be transparency. If we've already fixed conservation easements, why are there still landowners in Colorado getting these little nasty letters from Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies and Real Estate, or excuse me, Colorado Department of Real Estate saying that, hey, your conservation easement is disallowed. Your 10 conservation easements are disallowed. So if they're fixed, then why are we still having this problem? Then the other thing I'm going to bring to you too is, of course, I'm the state rep that opposed the animal sanctuary. I don't know if you noticed 2 days ago, a young lady in North Carolina was killed by a lion getting out of a cage. Lions that are not supposed to attack, lions that won't go anywhere. This lion did, got out, and it killed a young lady that was 22 years old. I still oppose the carnivores. Now they can do whatever else they want with their property. It is their private property right. But to bring carnivores in cattle country, that's a different thing. That's what they call a nuisance in legal terms. So my last bill is about historic designation. And I want to thank the city of Trinidad for what you have done. You have put together historic districts, and it's great because all of you are in favor. It's wonderful. It ought to be something that you want to do, not something that is mandated on top of you. In January of 2015, there was what they called a pink map, and most of you don't even know this happened, in eastern Los Animas County. We were in the pink map zone, an MPDF that they were going to put on the National Register of Historic Places as a study area. History Colorado was part of it. Mainly it came from the Cultural Resources Survey of the Purgatory River region, which was by Colorado Preservation, Inc. But what happened was, this pink map, which is from Trinidad out east, clear to the line, clear to La Junta, this whole area, was going to be under what they call a study area. That was a pilot program. And it didn't mean anything other than the fact that it was just a pilot program. What would have meant is that eventually you would have been designated on the National Register without your knowledge. So that again, that's why I'm back to the city of Trinidad. Thank you for the way you do historic designation, because you make sure everyone is on board and you know what's going on. Most of the people that are in this, that live in this, don't even know it's happened. So this is something that I picked up that we were going to do 2 years ago. We haven't got to it yet. Even History Colorado at the time sent back an email saying, you know, we do need to fix this. This is something that needs to be fixed because people do need to know when their land is being put on the National Register of Historic Places. As I said, it should be an honor, not something that's shoved over the top of you as landowners just because you own some homesteads or because you're in an area that certain groups would like to control. As you know, Pinyon Canyon and Riverside has Army Compatible Use Buffers, AQs, and that's how I first learned about the Nature Conservancy, because I'm in that area, I'm in that zone. My ranch is just east of Pinyon Canyon Manure Site. So if I wanted to, I could have just jumped right in and got a conservation easement and all would have been well. In fact, the sky would have been a little bluer and the birds would sing brighter. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have to be smart with what we do with our land, and we have to be exceptionally smart with what we do with our land around these cities. And those of you that are on the city council, there's a little tiny fine line that you cross whenever you believe everything that's given to you. Because there are major plans for Colorado and especially Southeast Colorado. And I'm afraid of our loss of tax base. I'm afraid of our loss of what we actually do, of real ranchers. I mean, it's ridiculous to me that the fact that you've got to decide what you're going to do on a ranch that size. I can give you a few pointers right now, but I grew up there. So I've been in rooms like this, and I might be the only one that has a difference of opinion, but it's okay. Because I will take this idea, I will take these ideas that I have to Denver and let them know, okay, this is what Senate Bill 143 did. This is where we're at. We're creating a state park. Remember, the Nature Conservancy gives it over. They're a conduit. So when you think you're going to own it, you may not own it for very long. It'll probably end up being a state park. And then as state-built money comes off the tax roll. And we've gone around that before. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be your state representative. I'm proud to take on the tough issues. And that's what I do. And I will take these three. Yeah, I could be another female up there in Denver that carries a license plate bill, but no, I'm not going to do it. They give you a quote of 5, and I'm going to do the best I can to represent the people. The amounts of emails and calls I get, that's what I determine that on. Remember that out of 6,500 conservation easements in Colorado, 783 became indeed disallowed back in 2003-04. 80% of those are in my district. So this is an issue that we have been around every which way there is to be around it. And we have to be smart as to what we're doing. Sure, there's places in Colorado that need preserved. Sure, there are places where we don't want development. But here we are again, that development word. Where's it at here? I missed it when I came in on my 100-mile trek. God bless you all. And if you have questions, I'd be glad to take them. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your passion, because this is an important part of the world. We all love this part of the world. But I think the economic realities have skewed. My family's been here since the 1890s, when the big thing was railroad and Fisher Peak had no trees on it. We were using them for mine timbers and all the different things that went on as a society progresses down the road. Now, the cattle industry in this part of the world, we were home to some of the largest free-ranging cattle ranches in the United States, North America. That's all kind of come down to a shorter period. I grew up in Raton, which east of town, there were probably 2,000 small ranches out there. As it became less and less viable, they all had to sell out to larger corporations, which makes us all pretty nervous. But one of the things that we have to understand, and I think you in Denver have to understand, as a community that's always been reliant on energy for our tax base and some agriculture, what's happened here is we have been left high and dry at the dock because coal is no longer viable. Coal bed methane is not really viable at this point in time. You're correct, 20, 30 years, who knows what's going on. What we do have viable are a lot of people who want to come and spend money in Los Animas County to see the nature as it has always been. And that's why we have 5 billionaires within 100 miles of here that own a lot of property, because they want to keep it the way it is. That's okay. Now, if we didn't have public ownership of like national parks and all these other things, we wouldn't have buffalo, we wouldn't have elk, we wouldn't have any of these things. So there's a good way to mix this thing all together. And one of the things that we've got to understand in Los Animas County and Trinidad is there is a ton of money waiting to come down, and the county will participate in the tax revenues at 1.5%, I think, because we voted that into the county to allow them to participate in stuff they've never participated in before. So I think your passion is great. I think you need to temper it a little bit, think outside the box, and realize the rest of the state, we don't want Denver, we don't want Colorado Springs because of development. We want what we got right here. Now, can Colorado? I don't think it's ever going to become Denver, but you never know. One of the things we got to understand is what is the best usage of our property, our people, our industries, and our ideals in an area that people want to spend money to come and visit. So just, we need to temper some of the thought process a little bit and understand what's going to be better for all involved. Thank you.
Could you be more specific in the tax consequences of the Conservancy and the county and versus the state taxes? I don't understand.
Thank you. Well, when government takes land, Gene, they offer back payment in lieu of taxes, PIL. And there's federal PIL and there's state PIL. So, for example, let's go back to the Bosque del Oso. In 1998, they took the Bosque del Oso. It actually had to go through a bill. Back in those days, now they just push it through capital development at the state capitol. But back then, you used to have a bill. So anyway, it went through, and the state bought Bosque del Oso, which was part of the old CF&I. And at that time, they used the word development, the same wording as some of this that I read today. It was supposed to be grazed, didn't get grazed till just a few years ago. They're grazing it now somewhat, but it was part of the bill, actually supposed to be on the bill, didn't happen. But anyway, back to PIL, it's just a percentage of what it was. Back in 1998, it was 10 cents on the dollar. Now it's more than that for state PIL. Federal PIL is whatever the Congress decides to give that year. And they always are very, usually have a press release, and you'll see Ken Buck's picture, Congressman Buck or something, and say how wonderful it is that the federal PIL money is coming, and this is what your county is going to do with PIL. But, so it's a takeoff of taxes. So that tax revenue comes right off the top, and your assessor no longer has that money coming in, just the percentage of it, whatever state built is. So you lose your tax revenue, yes. That's a good question. Thank you for asking that. Tony?
Yeah, Jody, could you tell us,
She's right there.
could you tell us how much taxes were generated off of that piece of property?
Crazy French on average pays around $10,000. Most of it's ag, most of it's wasteland, so it's valued at a very low price per acre. But the majority of that goes to a school district. A fire district heavily relies on that. The county gets a portion of that, the city of Trinidad. So actually the city doesn't get a portion of that. It's your school district, a fire district, the county, and the ambulance district, and another small portion of that goes to a smaller fire district. So on average, their total tax base is around $10,000. And to most, that doesn't sound like a lot. But when you have mill levies of 2.005, every single one of those dollars is valuable, and that equates to a service. Dialing 911, having a fire district show up at your house, having an ambulance be able to find you, having county services. So 10,000 in the scheme of things, it's not that large, but all of those dollars do provide valuable services to the county.
And the Bosque del Oso is the largest wildlife area in Colorado for the Colorado Division of Wildlife or Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Back in 2008, when the Chancellor Ranch went to the Colorado State Land Board, that took about an $8,000 off the tax dole every year. So it is, and it hurt Branson School. If someone was here from Branson, like Mr. Winford, he could tell you all about it. What it hurt their fire district, it hurt their school. Doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when it's every year, it makes a lot of difference. And so that was a good question. Thank you, Gina.
But it does seem like one hand clapping. What about the sales tax revenues that are going to generate any increases in property values? It's got to dwarf the $10,000.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes, it seems like the $10,000 is one hand clapping. When you think about all of the other tax revenues, increased tourism is likely to generate in this area. So,
how do you designate that change goes to the park and for the ranch?
Well, reimbursement. All you have to do is have a plan. It just seems awfully short-sighted to give up an opportunity to make this a tourist destination, not just a place you stop through on the way to Raton, in return for $10,000. It doesn't make sense.
I think because the county, we're only in our first year of collecting sales tax, and I am not a sales tax expert because I handle ad valorem property. We'll have to wait and see. And we're waiting to see how much of our sales tax, I believe, was generated this year, how that breaks up or what was brought to
It's
it.
got to generate a lot more than $10,000.
I have a question right back here, then I gotta go.
I just would like to make a clarification since I happen to manage the bull scape. We do have grazing, but the state of Colorado Parks and Wildlife pays 100% of the ag rate of built payments in the state, including special districts. So that may have changed, but that is accurate. The county asks for the reimbursement is paid at 100% of payment in lieu of taxes, including special districts. So it's not a percentage, it is 100%. Can't tell you what federal government does, but the state does.
Thank you, sir. But it hasn't always been that way. So, and other areas. So, anything else? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And just a little clarification too. You asked a question about the taxes, and that's already been discussed. Is if there is a tax base that could be lost, that the city. We've already talked about backfilling that, so there would be no loss to the special district. So, and from my understanding right now, the initial purchase by the Trust for Public Land and Nature Conservancy, they do pay taxes. So the special districts and anybody who receives sales tax or taxes out of that or tax dollars will get that money. So just to let you know. Up next is Senator Larry Crowder. Senator.
Well, I was more than willing to talk about what was presented here today, but I'll get to that.
This is my name is Senator Larry Crowder. I represent all of southeastern, south central Colorado. And I'm entering my 7th, I have 2 years left. But about 4 or 5 years ago, there was as I recall, it was the city government that asked me to be involved in bringing a busload of investors down to Trinidad. At the time, I'm talking about 6, 7, 8 years ago, the downtown of Trinidad was dying. You know, people were moving out, the businesses were closing down. So we had this idea that the city came up with at the time, and I thought was very reasonable. Why don't we have, because of all of the historical buildings we have in downtown Trinidad, why not see if we can get Colorado history as well as a lot of investors coming in to this area? And, you know, it wasn't an overnight change, but it was a change to see where you're at now. We took that busload of people throughout downtown Denver, old garages and old buildings, and you know, people started seeing that spark of life in a city that it was dying, how we could rejuvenate it by branding it more of an artistic type setting. And I thought that was great. But if you look at it now, if you look at downtown Trinidad now, how it looks, how the brand is attracting, how people are willing to make that change from basic mom and pop business stores to artistic was phenomenal. I think along with the college and the hospital and everybody else, everybody was engrossed in changing this, and they've done it. Or the pathway to it is well on the road. So I think that if you look at Trinidad, and I'm talking about the city of Trinidad, they've made remarkable progress in this. And so I think I think not only the city but the county, I think together there's been a kind of a dynamic change happen. I don't know, maybe if you live here you don't see it as much as somebody that visits occasionally like I do. But it's, you know, it's an amazing place. And I think you need to continue this type of thought process on how to make it better without moving Denver like the one gentleman said down here. You know, as far as conservation easements, I didn't realize it was going to be a part of the conversation today, but there's some realities in the conservation easement that was established in the state of Colorado. Lois Bradley was the Senate president at the time out of Walsenburg, and she brought the bill forward. But the fiscal note on it was $4 or $5 million. The first year out of the box, it went to $19 million. It exploded. And, you know, the state got involved, and, you know, as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of corruption in the conservation easements. I've run 3 bills myself trying to straighten it out, and it's a tough nut to crack. It really is. There's nothing easy about conservation easement. But the place for conservation easement, which has benefited a lot of rural Colorado, is the ability to keep the water on the land. And to me, that's pretty important. Now, I have the land that I own. I'm a cattleman myself. I do not have a conservation easement on it, but I bought land with a conservation easement on it. And it was to my benefit. Because the reality is, with that conservation easement on it, the person already took the taxes off, so it devalued the land. So I was able, as an agricultural producer, to purchase more land. And even though the one word in the conservation easement that is to me interesting is perpetual. So I think even if you talk to the conservation easement people, they realize that one word does need to be tempered. But the reality is it's worked for those that want it reasonably well, and it's their choice as a landowner. And you know, I'm not going to make a judgment on whether you go conservation easement or not, because if it's available to you, and if it helps you tax wise or whatever it helps you, you go right ahead and do it. Don't matter to me. You know, I think you know, I think the bills that I ran tried to straighten out what happened in the past. And that's a lot of what we do in the state legislature, is we run bills, and then we find out the unintended consequences, and then we try and straighten them out. And it's just something that happens. It's something that we do. But those that want it, they're welcome to it, and those that don't want a conservation easement, don't get one. You know, I don't think that, I think we've learned so much along the way on what to do and what not to do with conservation easements. And it's going to be a continuing process of trying to straighten it out. But, you know, there was I didn't mean to get off on that. And the reason that I spoke second was I felt that it was the gentleman thing to do is let the lady go first. That's what it was about. The thing about the Gallagher Amendment, it's going to be a tough nut to crack. There's a lot of districts that are actually applying for mill levy increase to overcome this. We had an interim committee formed at the state capitol this year, and we might be able to get it stayed off for a year or two at a time, but the reality is it's in our Constitution. Unless we can come up with a plan to actually set a different standard for rural versus metro, you know, it's going to be tough. And I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to realize that, and a lot of people do realize that it does hurt your special districts. But the problem is to have the voters change the Constitution. You know, if I was opposing to that, I would say, you know what, if you vote for this, they're going to raise your taxes. And that's what it's about. And that's what brought Gallagher into the mix to start with. So how do you straighten it out for special districts? One of the ways a lot of them is going after that mill levy increase, which in itself is difficult, but we're working at it. So, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. You know, the opioids in the community, I was with Attorney General Kaufman on this task force. That's another tough one. We put, not only the state, not only the counties, but the federal government puts a lot of money toward opioid issues. The biggest problem we have is, like so many issues, that we only deal with the people that come to see mental health. There's so many people that we have to go outreach to. You know, the medical profession has really done a tremendous amount of work on this to try and limit what the dangerous drugs that are going out. They've made their prescriptions smaller amounts. We're trying everything we can because we realize what a serious issue this is. You know, the amount of people that the lady reported, you know, year in and year out increases. You know, more people, we're all aware of this, but how to actually fix it is a problem. And getting that interaction between the professional people and the people on the drugs is the biggest problem. And it's the same with suicide. You know, veteran suicide is what I'm talking about. You know, 20% of the people that committed suicide as veterans are contacting the VA, reaching out for help. But you know, 80% are not. So how do you get that interaction? And we're talking about a government entity coming to you, asking you how you are, how you're feeling, how can we prevent you from preventing suicide? And that is a tough task for anybody. You know, the Early Learning Center. You know, I think nobody knows what. Everybody can speculate on what a new governor is going to do, but the reality is we will know shortly how we're going to react to this. You know, last year what we did in the legislature was put $450 million into transportation. Then the two amendments, 109 and 10, failed with the public. So I think, and then if you say, well, we have an additional $1 billion in the coffers. So we will make headway in transportation, we will make headway in education. You know, the negative factor is an issue that does need to be, you know, we in state legislature need to do our responsibility by funding education. We need to do our due diligence in funding transportation. You know, the problem is there's just never enough money, and there's always other issues to to spend money on, such as opioids, such as the issues that confront the state of Colorado as well as the citizens. But what we need to do is I'm going in with the idea that of the new government in the state of Colorado, very optimistically, and I would suggest you do the same thing. When I first came into office, it was straight Democratic control, and the reality is we got a lot done back then. Even though we are of different parties, myself and the governor, we do recognize the needs and the desires of the citizens of the state of Colorado would be is actually the paramount goal. So even though that we're different parties, I think look at it optimistically, because the state of Colorado on the overall is still booming. It's a great place for all of us to call home, and people continue to come here, and there's a lot of things that rural Colorado has missed out on, in my opinion, but there's also a lot that rural Colorado has gained advantage of. A couple of things I'll be doing this year is we have water issues in the lower Arkansas Valley from the Fountain Creek from Colorado Springs down. So we're going to try and get the federal government to actually fulfill their ARC frying pan project by getting the water line from Pueblo to Lamar as well as Eads. We're seeing some very dramatic change in the water quality, and there should be nowhere in this country that you should not be able to go and find good drinking water. So that's a big issue. Another thing we'll be doing with the federal government is seeing about dredging the river from Lahana to John Martin. The reality is there's been certain areas where the silt has risen up to 15 feet, and a lot of this is from Fountain Creek, and even when the Pueblo Reservoir was being constructed, some of that come down, and even some of this from the Trinidad area going down the Fishpaw. But it's time for the federal government to take responsibility for their ditch, and that's to clean their ditch. There's a lot that goes on, and I've already got my bills in, and what I serve on is Health and Human Services as well as local government, and I've always been on those. We're trying to figure ways to decrease health care in the state of Colorado, and I will tell you that I've got, I think, 9 hospitals in my district. And I've reached out to almost all of them when I visit them, and I say, the question I ask is, what exactly are you doing to reduce healthcare costs? And without exception, with exception of one, nobody knows what I'm asking. They think I'm speaking a foreign language. What are you decreasing healthcare costs? Well, the hospital here in Trinidad actually held their rate of inflation and increase for 3 years. So I think, and I commend the hospitals here in Trinidad for doing that, because at least they can see that the increased healthcare cost is just something that is unattainable in the state of Colorado, or in the nation for that matter. But there's a lot of issues and a lot of work that we all have to do together. And I've really, I like this area, and I like Southern Colorado. Get the generation out of it. So I think I will do whatever I have to or can do to continue. And I will finish on one note on the Nature Conservancy. We had a similar situation several years ago on the Spotter Ranch. The attempt was to expand the Great Sand Dunes. Well, the Nature Conservancy District at that time, this has been a few years ago, in the world budget, they had $7 billion available for this type of deal, and the nation of the United States alone was $1 billion for the expansion of conservation. So we had pretty good success with the Nature Conservancy over there, and I see no reason not to support that here. I wouldn't just get up here and say I support it without having the background of the Zapata Ranch and the Great Sand Dunes. So they do have a track record in the state of Colorado, and you know, it just, you know, I'm encouraged to hear about the game plan going forward. You know, the Colorado Department of Wildlife, I'm sure will come up with the way to handle this. And I'm also very encouraged to hear about the cattle, that the grazing would continue. So I think that would be an attribute to this. I think that, you know, with I'm a big advocate of the Southwest Chief, but I think with the way the world is set up on tourism, if we can get, that's why I asked the question about the crazy Frenchman. The gentleman said it might be a derogatory, but I think maybe that might be a drawing point for the people from France. I think, well, you understand my but I think that, you know, I think that we just need to continue on. You know, I think you need to be proud of what Trinidad and Los Animas County has done. So, and I know I am. You know, because I've seen it over the last several years, and I'm been proud to be a part of it. But ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. Oh, question.
This is my last one of the day.
Oh, no, not so.
I'm glad you brought up the water issues, because I don't know if you guys are aware, this is something from Ms. Lewis also. The Purgatory River watershed is the last intact watershed in Colorado. And with that being said, it means there's no transfer of water out of the basin. Everything is still used for agriculture and all the traditional usage. The only export is out to Kansas, and that's because we had lousy lawyers and they had better lawyers. But what I would like to have a thought process from both of you is if there's any kind of a bill or anybody comes in, Aurora or whoever else, wanting to export water out of the basin, that you oppose that, because number one, it's going to be too expensive. Number one, we don't have enough water to do that. But it's you know, it's part of what this whole integrity of this area is we've got that designation as the last watershed. So I think with everything else that we've talked about today, that's going to be the draw. And I agree with you, Crazy French could be a hell of a marketing term, but we'll go from there.
Well, you know, the thing with water right now, there's two attempts in the district, one in San Luis Valley and one in Lower Arkansas Valley to export water. And I've come out publicly and I've stated that, you know, I do not support this type of movement at all. You know, in the same token, you got to realize that the people that own the water are yours and my age, and that's why, you know, what I would like to see is your conservation districts actually purchase that water or lease it. And what we've done in the state capitol, we've actually set up a way to lease water 3 out of 10 years. But the reality is, when you start talking about buying dry, that kills an area. There's an area in southeastern Colorado in the far corner where, you know, there's some wells that are being drilled for water productivity that may not, or you know, may or may not be, but the reality is they're outside the conservation district, and that's what's important for the conservation district to be basically formed in an area to protect your interests. And you know, the one that you're talking about, I was involved with it several years ago when they wanted to refinance the conservation area in this area, which you know, what we did was come to terms with the Department of Agriculture, whoever it was that held the papers on that, to refinance that. So, but the reason I bring that up is because people are willing to work with you on water. And I think that, you know, we just have to keep our water in place if we can. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure being down here.
Thanks, Senator, for your words. Next up is Mr. Dwight Ryder from Senator Bennett's office. And bear with us, I know we're going to probably be running over some time, but there's still some people to speak and some pretty interesting stuff coming up. So please bear with us.
I'm going to get up here and I'm going to make up some of that time
because I don't have a lot to come here. I came here mostly today to listen to your issues. And that's why I showed up more than anything. I do want to point out one thing that Senator Crowder pointed out was how Trinidad has come almost full circle, and you may not even realize it because you're looking at it every day. But I have covered, since I've had this job with Senator Salazar and now with Michael Bennett, I've covered 20 counties for both the senators. So I go from the San Luis Valley all the way up to the Burlington and Lincoln County areas and so forth. I have noticed over the probably last 8 years, almost everywhere I travel to, I see a difference in every little town. They are all on the uprise. And it's because of the citizens that live in the town and that are promoting the town. So I want to commend Trinidad on that. I want to commend the rest of the counties, Orfano County, if anyone's from here, they've come a long ways also. The only place for a long time was up for a lot of us anyway. So it is nice to see that we are on the way up. I do want to point out one thing more than anything. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you how great my boss is. I do believe that he's great. I think one of the things that I really want to point out more than anything to you as a group is that we're probably one of the luckiest states in the entire nation, because we have one senator that is over here on the left. We have a senator that's on the right. They both have their opinions. They both have their beliefs. But when it comes to any legislation that is effective and good for the state of Colorado, they both support it. And you can look at both of their records, and you cannot argue with me about this, the fact that those two senators come together for anything that has to do with the betterment of the state of Colorado that they can help with. So I do want you to know that doesn't take place in most states in our nation. So that's something that I think we as Coloradans need to understand, and probably, thank both of them next time we see them. My last name is Gardner, even though Corey and I call each other cuz. We are not related. But we've known each other for a very long time. So, if you have any questions for me, I'm just here to basically listen and take away. And my job is to make sure the senator knows people like yourself in every county, every town, what their thoughts are, what their concerns are, and my job is to give back to him so that he's aware of it also. So, I thank you for your time. Tara?
Yes, Mr. Gardner, thanks. Can you just touch on the fact that Senator Bennett, and I think Senator Gardner as well, are supporting the Southwest Chief?
Absolutely. Our office was one of the first, we were at the first meeting when they were formulating the coalition between New Mexico, Kansas, and Colorado. And so there's not been one day that we haven't been keeping track of the Southwest Chief, and it's a personal issue to me. Just so you all know, I still live in Southeast Colorado. I was born and raised in the Southeast. I still live in Wardway. So it's a passion to our office. When you talk about the conduit, it's a passion. So it's, there's a lot of things down in Southeast Colorado and Southern Colorado that we are watching over on a daily basis. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dwight. Next, of course, is Ms. Kathy Garcia from Senator Cory Gardner's office. So, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I could save more time and say ditto to what Dwight said, but I'd like to reiterate the fact that both senators work very hard together to make sure bills for Colorado are passed. And I think they're the only two senators on both sides of the fence that do this in the United States. So they are a model for the other senators. I'd like to remind everyone that our offices are here to help you with any problem you may have with VA, veterans benefits, Social Security issues, IRS issues, whatever issues you may have with the federal agencies. Our offices are here to help you. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever you are, our offices will help any constituent that comes through our doors. So I'd like to remind you of that. Real quick, on the Farm Bill, as you have heard, the Farm Bill did pass. Hemp has been removed from the controlled substance list, which means it can be irrigated by water from the federal facilities. So that's about all I have. I know we're running against time, but if you have any questions, I will stay here afterward for a little while. Any questions right now? Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Erica Chavez, and I'm from Congressman Ken Buck's office. It's great to be with all of you today. So because we are a little over on time, last Congress we passed over 700 bills, so I put this font a little smaller so I can read them more quickly. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm not going to read you all 700 bills to pass the House. However, I do want to just quickly mention it is a new Congress starting tomorrow. There will be a swearing in of all of the newly elected officials. And with that, it will be a new Congress for all the bills. So any bills, resolutions, legislation that was introduced for the last 2 years no longer will be at the table. And so any of those of the congressmen that passed out of the House but not out of the Senate, he will probably be reintroducing 2 of those. One of them is the Water Act, which I've talked about before, and I would be happy to discuss with you. A couple of the accomplishments I just would like to note that the congressman did celebrate last year is talking about the opioid issue. One of the bills he introduced is using data to prevent the Opioid Diversion Act. And basically what this does is adds a lot more accountability to the wholesalers that sell the opioids to pharmacies. So what was previously done is that pharmacies are held accountable for what they dispense to patients, but there was no accountability for what wholesalers would send to the pharmacies. And there was huge problems across the whole U.S. about illegally selling opioids that way. So that did pass the final bipartisan opioid agreement, and it became law. So we're very happy to say that today. As well as that, the congressman did also support or co-sponsor the resolution to end the U.S. military intervention in Yemen. Unless Congress authorizes the use of war, he does not believe that this is something that one branch of government should do. And while he's been in Congress, he has continually said that we need to regain the balance of power within the 3 branches of government, which is why he founded the Article 1 caucus. And then along with that, I know that he's going to continue to fight for reform in the legislative process. So for my last point today, one thing that he has said repeatedly is that one of the problems in Congress is that we have closed rules. And basically what that means is that leadership decides what a bill will be. The bill doesn't go through the committee, any committee, and then leadership puts it on the floor with no ability for legislators to offer amendments to that legislation. So he has founded the Reformers Caucus with his Democratic colleague Kathleen Rice from New Jersey. They're both former DAs, and the entire mission and goal of the Reformers Caucus is to have an equal amount of co-sponsors for bills, such as having an open rule for legislation that would come to the floor so that we can have more progress and have better bills. And so that will be some of the bills that you'll see him working on this year with Kathleen Rice and the group. So other than that, I would like to just say that our office also does handle casework like both the senators. So if you have any issues with a federal legislative or federal agency, we'd love to help you with that. Or we can also help set up tours of the White House and the Capitol if you go to DC. So thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Erica. Next up is Mr. Luis Lopez, Commissioner Luis Lopez III.
Happy New Year. Where do I start? We've got a lot, and I'd like to address some of the questions that were asked regarding the sales tax earlier. But it's an exciting time. I'd like to give an overview of Los Animas County, where we're at as a state of the county. As of right now, we are doing okay. It's an exciting time for us. We have Mr. Tony Hass and Mr. Felix Lopez on board as newly elected county commissioners. I would like to take the time to thank Mr. Anthony Abeda, who I served 6 months with him in office, Mac Loudon, and Dean Moulter. Mac did 8 years of service for Los Animas County and Dean a year and a half, so I'd like to thank them. They couldn't be here today because they both had cattle problems, freezing temperatures, freezing water, and they had some issues. So with that said, the county just recently passed our general fund budget for $6.7 million. Our overall budget is a little over $30 million between DHS, our road and bridge, our PILT. And it sounds like a lot of money, but in fact, it's actually a lot less than we need to operate. Our road and bridge, men and women have not had an increase in salary in over 10 years. It's been quite a while for them to have even a benefit. Our DHS department has been underfunded for a long time as well. That poor staff is not funded properly enough to give their staff an increase in wages that they have not had in many years. Matter of fact, many of them, or some of them, are on entitlement programs of themselves. That's because we can't afford to pay them enough money to be there. And our sheriff's department is well part of that issue. As a business person, we keep losing money. In my insight, if we do not fund them properly, we lose them. We lose staff left and right. And it's just a revolving door. So then we continue to have to train them again. So what we need to do as a county is try to find more funding mechanisms, which we are going to be working on with our sheriff's department, our road and bridge department, and our new county administrator, Mr. Dorenkamp. We are trying to put in place a model traffic code to have a new revenue stream for Los Animas County Sheriff's Department. We're also looking at possibly bringing in new inmates from another county and having another revenue source of housing in our jail, just so we can offset the losses of Gallagher coming in, which we have to anticipate, and also our table restrictions. Now, we also are in a table restricted state right now with the lawsuit that's happening in El Paso County. El Paso County is suing, or Doug Spruce is suing El Paso County. Once that is resolved, it'll either give us a green light or a red light to keep our excess revenue on our 1 cent sales tax. Now, the half-cent sales tax is dedicated to the district attorney's office and public safety only, which is under a lawsuit right now as well, because he feels that he can keep the excess funds without sharing them. But our council has given us the advice that we cannot spend them, we cannot go against Tabor until these issues are resolved. So until that happens, that money is going to be tied up. Now, we were hoping this would be resolved sooner than later, but as it looks as right now, it's probably going to be a while. So that's when I go to the mention of the sales tax. People were talking about earlier, Michelle Miles in particular, about why can't we use that 1 cent or 1.5 cents to cover these districts? Well, it's a different mechanism. A district is formed, set up, it's voted on, or they have their own board of directors, they have their own funding mechanism. It's not part of the county funding. It is directed from the voters who voted in these districts, and is according to the mill levy. It was voted upon, or it was ruled upon years ago in up north or in Los Angeles County, right, Jody?
Correct.
And so we can't use all this 1 cent sales tax when we can't even pay our DHS people to stay. We can't pay our coroner's office. We have to inject another $15,000 just for the end of the year for all the stuff that happened this past month. And they still underfunded. So this 1 cent sales tax that everybody talks about that the county's getting just opened the doors 5 days a week. That's it. It still doesn't give an increase for our staff and our day-to-day operations. Our health department's lucky. Kim, you do a great job in getting all the grants, and you and Jennifer both do. We're going to be reaching out to those grants as well with our new administrator on certain levels, but this is not a fix-all 1 cent sales tax. So when they mention that, and why don't we offset when we buy Fisher's Peak or we buy Bosque de Oso, why could the county do that? Well, it's a two-way street, and it's been lacking a two-way street for a long time. The city does not pay anything into the county for the coroner's office, for our jail, for our sheriff's department, for any of that either. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword. We could say we don't pay into the Carney Library, we don't pay into this. So, the 1 cent, I'm not trying to point fingers or blame names. It's just, we're not fixed yet. The 1 cent is just a Band-Aid, and that's where we're at with that. The hemp laws, I'm glad that's passed. That's going to open up a lot of business for Los Animas County farmers and ranchers. I believe that's going to be a good program for us. We do have a master plan in place for our fairgrounds, which we are using lottery funds, which cost you nothing. We have actually 88 playground facilities coming from lottery funds as we speak. Our airport hangars are being repaired. Our airport has been a loss for the county for many years. We're going to be trying to figure out new ways with these two new commissioners and our staff to generate more revenue for our airport, and possibly, in my opinion, I can't speak on behalf of Mr. Lopez and Mr. Haas, possibly entertaining some private businesses to come and purchase or rent space at our airport for industrial type facilities, maybe hemp or a new airport repair facility of some sort. Those are kind of my pipe dreams for doing those fairgrounds and the airport. I'd like to have the fairgrounds as well, have camping facilities. Many years ago, when they built the center out there, the event center, it wasn't, I guess, funded enough so we can make it to the best it can be. We're working on that now with lottery funds, installing a dance floor, and possibly some heating or some cooking facilities as well. You were there many years ago, Commissioner, and you got that program going, so thank you for that. We have, with the model traffic code, we couldn't do it before for the Sheriff's Department because we didn't have a local attorney. Our attorney was in Texas, and the reason why the attorney was retained was because it was pending litigation, which would have cost the county and taxpayers a lot of money to bring on a new attorney to oversee that and take that on. We have now transferred out attorneys. Pam Nelson Salopich has been with us for the last 6 months. She is going to continue on as both our Department of Human Services County Attorney and Los Animas County Attorney. She sits now as municipal court judge for the city of Trinidad, which would make it very easy for you to slide into prosecuting model traffic code cases for the county. But we have to find other revenue streams because the 1 cent isn't enough. It's just, like I said, it's a Band-Aid. So we're getting there. What else do I have here? But back to the districts and the fire districts and ambulance districts and stuff. They're funded totally different, folks. It'd be like me going to the city and saying, hey, give us $100,000 for our jail. We need some more money. We're funded this way, they're funded that way, so the districts are funded their way. We can't tell them how to do their money, nor how they asked. So that's kind of what I got for Los Animas County, and any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. I'll be giving the presentation for the city of Trinidad, and I'll also be doing the closing. You know, housing, recreation, medical, education, that is what is needed for a vibrant community. The city is currently working on recreation and housing, which you have heard about today. Housing is drastically needed in Trinidad because we are seeing people from across the state and from other states wanting to come and live in Trinidad. We are also having difficulty just having people finding rentals. Rentals are at a premium right now. We don't have any rentals in Trinidad. So with the Space to Create Housing, which is about a year away, that'll offer the units that'll be available. It's going to take time to develop housing for our community. What we need to try to do is to find a developer to come into our community to build some townhomes, condominiums, and some reasonably priced homes. Those are the three things, and those are the items in the housing that really are necessary if we're going to expand. That's what we're trying to do. We're working on recreation, which you've also heard about today. But we have a ways to go. Besides the ball fields, the tennis, the golf, the skate park, and the wormhole trail, we need to continue to expand the recreational activities to bring tourists into the area, which I think you've also recognized today. Fisher's Peak, we believe, is going to be a great driver for that part of it. The Creative District, which is really part of the Space to Create project, which will attract the creative industry and those people that want to come visit in Trinidad. The medical and education, those are pretty much beyond our control. We can only offer support in those areas. Our hospital, as you have heard, I think somebody mentioned earlier, is currently undergoing a major remodel, which I think that's something that everybody has been wanting to see for many, many years today. To have a vibrant community, we need to have a dependable infrastructure and services. Our infrastructure is old and in need of repair. We are currently working on 2 major projects at this time, and a third project, a new sewer main from downtown to the sewer plant. We are currently soliciting funding to fund that project. The Santa Fe Trail water line is one line. I can't remember what the total dollar amount is on that. But we are working on the Oak Street to High Street, which is a $3 million project. That's a 1.5 fund coming from DOLA and 1.5 million coming from the city of Trinidad, which is a city match. You know, we will need several $1 million in the future to bring our infrastructure up to date. This will take many years, and that'll be way past probably that I will be in office, and many of us that will be in office today. But with help from the state and possible the federal funding, we'll be able to continue updating our infrastructure. One thing to recognize that the city of Trinidad, we own all of our facilities, and that includes electrical, water. These are our services: electrical, water, sewer, and gas. So those are the services that we have, that we own, that we offer to the city of Trinidad. That is something that's pretty highly unusual across the state. Most of them have some have none. We are fortunate to control all 4 of our utilities. Besides that, I want to mention and thank Dana Crawford for being involved in our city. And of course, with the purchase of the Fox Theater, we're going to work with her to try to see if we can get that up and running in the near future. One big issue that came up was a few years ago was recycling. We have approximately 25 years left on our current landfill. A couple of years ago, began talking to Terra Firma, which is the local recycle entity. Recently, Council has taken a step to look at what it will take to establish recycling in Trinidad. This will be a process, as we first need to educate the citizens of the community and even the county, and how we will extend the life of our landfill. In order to do this, we feel that, as a matter of fact, an interesting item is that a while back, Terra Firma went out to the landfill, and I think they dug like a 6x6x6 area out. And out of that small area, they found that like 60% of the product that was in there was recyclable. So we have 25 years left approximately with what we have today. So if we can begin to recycle products, begin to do other things, I think we could probably expand that lifespan for probably at least another 15, maybe 20 years. So, you know, we need to reach out and start really thinking positive about how recycling will enhance our life. Because if we end up closing that landfill earlier than necessary, we will have to export all of our product to a regional landfill, which will raise the cost of getting rid of our waste substantially. I don't even have a clue as to what it'll cost. So recycling is something that I think we all need to take notice on and really get serious about. And the city and council, like I said, has taken it upon ourselves to move forward with trying to see what we could do with recycling. That's pretty much what I have about the city at this point in time. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing in the city? Yes, ma'am.
Do we still purchase our electrical power from Lamont?
Yes, we are. We still haven't. Matter of fact, Ms. Miles is on the ARPA, and she keeps us updated. And they're working on other prospects right now to try to decrease the cost of the city as well. So they're working on that. Any other questions? Okay, in closing, you know, these roundtable meetings that we've had, this is the third one that we've had. This is an idea that I had a couple of years ago. The original plan was to get input from the city and the county. And then I pitched the idea to Ms. Marshall. And she said, why don't we include our state representatives and our national representatives? So it expanded from there, and so what you see today and what we're able to garner from all that is a pretty diverse group, not only local people, but our state and national representation, which I think we all really need at this point in time in our lives. So it's right, I think this group, it's good to have our senators' representations and our national representations here today with us. One of the things that came up in the first roundtable was, I think this came from current Commissioner-elect Lopez. He said, what are you doing about working together with the county? In the next couple of weeks, I plan to schedule a meeting with whoever the Los Angeles County Chair to begin a dialogue of willingness to work together. Once established, City Manager Greg Sund and County Administrator Phil Dorenkamp will take over the process. This is something that I think we've all heard. Why aren't the city and the county working closer together? So we hope to establish some good working relationships and some groundwork as to maybe we can even help offset some costs across the board. I don't know what those will be, but this is something that we will explore to hopefully help drive better services to the community, maybe drive some of the costs down for savings. So I really look forward to engaging, and I think the council looks forward to engaging with the county commissioners in making all that happen. By working together and including our state legislators in the near future, I believe that we will all have a great 2019. Thank you for attending. I hope this roundtable was informative, and we hope to have another in the near future. So thank you for coming, and that's